The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not necessarily those of its sponsors, or of Microsoft Corporation, its partners, or employees. .NET Rocks is a production of Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content. Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter. Hey, Rockheads! Tweak your one-key CodeRush templates later and listen up. It's time for another stellar episode of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Rory Blythe. This is Jeff Maciolik here to announce show number 80 with guest Mark Miller, recorded live Friday, September 10th, 2004. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter, and now offering hands-on VBNet and ASP.NET classes remotely. Online at www.franklins.net. And by Data Dynamics, makers of ActiveReports.net. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.datadynamics.com. And by Dundas Chart, advanced technology, advanced results. Online at www.dundaschart.com. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, Microsoft Technologies in-depth for IT managers and developers. Online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the man who warned NASA not to program the Genesis spacecraft software in Java, Carl Franklin. Ouch.
Yeah, what about that, huh? Did you guys hear about that? The Genesis accident? It's pretty nasty. Well, welcome to another stellar episode of .NET Rocks. I'm Carl in New London, Connecticut, and my co-host in Portland, Oregon tonight, Mr. Rory Blythe. How are you, sir?
Hi, Carl. I'm fine.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm fine, too.
Good.
An unusual non-latency I for whatever reason.
So I guess you're fine and I'm fine.
Yeah, now what do we talk about? Jeez.
I was actually starting to quote Dr. Strangelove. So, Dimitri, you're fine and I'm fine. Well, then, as you say, we're both doing fine, Dimitri, and then we have to go on and do the whole thing, and it takes about another hour.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not going to do that.
Hey, you know what I did this week? I think it was Sunday.
No.
Yeah, Sunday night.
No,
I saw the one and only Luciano Pavarotti at Mohegan Sun.
Oh, really?
Guy's like 100 years old. He's trying to sing. It's like his farewell tour, you know. He went right from the concert right to the grave, you know. Just they drove him right to the graveyard, put him in, throw the dirt on him.
Where'd you see him? Was he at the Guard?
He was at the Mohegan Sun Casino.
Oh, okay, all right.
And they have an arena there. And it was really weird. I was talking with some people that I met there, and they said that he just got married to this real young woman, and they had a baby. It was like a 1-year-old baby. This guy's like 70-something years old. And we were talking about that, how, you know, older actors and famous people like get married to these young people and have babies and stuff. And, you know, how it's kind of disgusting and all this. And I said, well, you know, it's one thing when it's Tony Randall, right? But Luciano Pavarotti, I mean, that guy
it's like Marlon Brando.
Yeah, he should have as many babies as he possibly can, you know, so he can grace the world with his genes before he kicks off. You know, it's like, does the world need another little Tony Randall walking around? I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, you know. So what have you been up to this week?
Well, this is my first non-traveling week since I joined Microsoft about a month ago. And after 4 weeks of traveling, I thought it'd be kind of nice to come home and relax a little bit. But the reality is, I was having a really good time. So I'm going back on the road next week for about a week, and I'm looking forward to that. But aside from that, I've been sitting around. I've been coding, which is something I haven't done in a few weeks. I've been working with Jim Blizzard on an ASP.NET 2 application we've got going on, but I'm not going to talk about what it is yet. And we will be talking about it at some point. Yeah, mysterious. So that was a lot of fun. I just get really excited when I use ASP.NET 2 just because my whole world has completely changed. So that's fun. And
sounds
like
some
majorly serious relationship problems that I'm not even going to get into. I'm just going to say that much.
Well, you opened the door, so we should just explore those.
No. Trust
you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have wanted to say.
This is going to a shrink. This isn't good for. This isn't good for .NET Rock stock.
Okay.
It's even like beyond .NET Rock stock.
All right. Well, you had to bring it up, so now the world wants to know. So.
You're right. Yeah, I guess that's
Kirk
true.
wants to know.
Yeah, so it's been a hairy week.
Okay.
I wanted to shave it. So that's what it was like.
Ew. It was.
Yeah.
Right.
So what about you? What's going on?
Well, there's a couple of things going on. Of course, we're still working on .NET Rocks the movie. The first one we hope to do one every year, and Data Dynamics again has stepped up to help us produce these. We're going to make them available online for a nominal shipping fee, and it's all on DVD, shrink wrapped. Nice kind of movie. It's got some content. It's got some fun. It's got a .NET Rocks show in there that we did on video, and some music and some bonus tracks and all sorts of good stuff. And the other thing I want to mention is Dev Connections is coming up here soon in Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas the week of November 7th. And Dev Connections is a great big conference that is just growing and growing and growing. And a lot of the people that you know and love from other conferences go speak there, and they always have a great time. It's always a great time. They have a combination of a Visual Studio, which is VBNet and C# conference. They have an ASP.NET conference and a SQL Server conference, all in one. And so people like Kimberly Tripp usually speak there. She always gets really high ratings, of course. People like Bill Vaughn, Fernando Guerrero, myself, Rocky Latka, other people like that. So, and I don't have the list in front of me, but just go to devconnections.com if you want to check it out. And another reason I bring it up is because Juval Lowy and I actually picked the talks for the Visual Studio section of it. So you're not going to go and see anything fluffy. We like to get into some good stuff. And the .NET Rocks party, that's right, .NET Rocks Las Vegas party is going to be the Saturday the 6th in Las Vegas, and everybody is invited. And previous
I was
guests,
invited too.
Yeah. Previous guests are going to be there, and so that, I think Mark's going to be there. Mark Miller,
yep.
Right? Mark's going to be there. And I know a lot of our previous guests, Mark Dunn's going to be there. Jeff's going to be there, we think. Right, Jeff? He's going to try to make it. And Rory's going to be there. I'm going to be there. And hopefully Kirk is going to be there. We don't know. Yeah, he's cringing. He's got to ask his wife. I don't know. Right? So that's what's going on. And we only really have a couple of pieces of mail worth reading. We're getting a constant stream of mails that I swear they're boilerplate. They're like, hey, I just discovered your show. I downloaded them all. I burned them to CD. I listen on the way to work. Yeah, heard that before. So everybody's doing that. So every once in a while we get something different. And this guy, Christopher Donges, don't know how to pronounce that, but he says, I love your show, and I've been working through the old shows. He says, have you ever thought of doing a show on other .NET IDEs, such as Delphi.NET and C# Builder? And Mark just squinted at me here. There are probably others, but being a Delphi 7 developer, I'd be interested in a show about DNet. Well, stick around, because tonight we may actually talk about some of those things. And that's pretty much it, man. We other than the boilerplate emails, that's about it for interesting emails. So, and the news is dry, huh?
Yeah, there was nothing going on this week. I spent like an hour today poring over things, and all I could find was a bunch of stupid, boring crap. Things like, lower Sun employee, like at the janitorial level, takes advantage of stock options after 5 years of vesting and things like that. And, who cares, right? I mean, I'm not saying that that's not important to me. That is important to me. I liked it. I was really glad to know. But what's important to the listeners?
True.
Right? So there was not a whole lot going on. And somebody in the chat room was pointing out, hey, a spaceship crash this week.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, but that's kind of depressing, Yeah, and we did cover that. Really extensive, deep .NET, .NET Rocks coverage there. Well, what wasn't? Carl Franklin, the man who advised him not to put Java on the Genesis.
Yeah, that's right. I told him they shouldn't use it.
I wanted to say the Genesis device. I've been watching Star Trek this week as a sort of escapist activity, and I just wanted to say the Genesis device. I'm so embarrassed I even admitted that. Speaking of which, there is one little bit of news that I'll share, and it's that there is going to be a Star Trek massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So if you are not a loser yet and you want to join the club, there's going to be a massively multiplayer online way to be a total loser dork, and I'll be there. So
speaking of Star Trek loserdom, I got.
I'm going to be a blue alien woman. What'd you say?
You are a blue alien woman.
Say, man, dude, Rory is one already.
I was listening. I was listening, reading. How many other sentences can I go through before I say I was watching a DVD? And it was on, came with Voyager's first season, Star Trek Voyager, which I was sort of into the whole Star Trek thing a little bit. And this was like this bonus DVD. I didn't know what it was, and I threw it in, and it was basically this infomercial for this place in Las Vegas that the Las Vegas Hilton has put up called Star Trek The Experience. And they've recreated the bridge of the Enterprise and about, I don't know, what did they say, 65,000 square feet of sets, down to the pixel, and down to down to the pixel on the graphics consoles, everything in its place, everything apportionately sized, and it's just like walking onto the bridge of the Enterprise. So if you're a true nerd, and the weirdest thing, I was actually, Kirk, I was going to bring this up for the Weird Wide Web, but since it's not a website, we could probably find it on the web, but they actually sell weddings on the bridge of the Enterprise of this place.
Creepy.
Whoa. Yes.
That's so creepy.
Whoa. And they're interviewing this lady. I should have got the clip. Next week I'll get a clip, an audio clip, and play what she said. But she said, I couldn't think of a better place where I could have my wedding than on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. She's got like these thick glasses on, snot.
Can you imagine the vows that they're saying? I promised never to stun you with a phaser and never to mislead you on the holodeck.
It was almost like the Tron suit guy,
It's probably where he got married.
Probably where he did get married. So anyway, Rory, this is a great show because Mark Miller has joined us in the studio as the guest tonight, and we're just going to leap right in and talk to him. I'm really, really anxious to talk to him. He came in yesterday, and we spent the day together today, and I spent a day in CodeRush training, basically. He just went through a whole bunch of features of CodeRush and some of the new things, and man, I'm just beside myself. I just loved it. So without any further ado, let me introduce Mark Miller. Mark has been developing software since the early 1980s. He spent the 12 years preceding 2004 coding developer tools, which are his passion, figuring out how to make developers more efficient. He was awarded the Spirit of Delphi award by Borland. He created CodeRush for Delphi in 1997, and it has won numerous Reader's Choice awards. He also created React, a component test program generator, and the CDK, component developer kit, for Delphi. He created XL8, a translation software package, and created the motion controls. This is perhaps the coolest thing. The motion control system for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stage show. What can we say? He's a developer's developer. He is now, what's your title? Chief Cook and Bottle Washer at Dev Express?
It's Chief of IDE Tools Division. It's kind of like an armored division we can roll out and just
the head developer. Yeah, he's a head geek developer. And of course, CodeRush for VisualStudio.net was released, I guess, February in this year, 2004. And since then has slowly been gaining this cult of developers, and the people who use it just can't get enough of it. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Mark Miller to the show. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. It's great to be here, man.
Great to be here, too. And I was waiting for Rory to say, hey, Mark.
Oh, well, hello.
But you don't have to.
Hello, everybody. How are you all doing tonight? Good.
We're doing fine, Rory.
Chit-chat.
But we have the
talk.
sort of social things out of the way then.
I really think this show is going downhill.
We can edit out that dead air.
We can edit out all that chit-chat. I'm trying to learn something here, and you guys are talking about...
I'm damn excited to be here, guys.
Yeah.
Damn excited.
We're damn excited to have you.
So you want me to start by asking you guys some questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Starting with, where am I? The CodeRush is obviously the big news here, and I saw it at TechEd. Scott Hanselman walked up to me at the regional director booth with his laptop, and he said, "Have you seen CodeRush?" That's the way he said it.
Scott Hanselman voice.
He just points right at me and goes, "Have you seen CodeRush?" No. He goes, "Come here." And like this group of people huddled around him, and he opened up his laptop, and he's typing code in VB and pushing like 3 keys, and boom, all this code just appears. And, little graphical arrows flying all over the place, and like radar screen type rubber banding circles enclosing on different areas. It's like, it looked like he was playing a video game with VB. And of course, it was just spitting out code left and right, and I was just hooked. So that was my first experience with CodeRush. So let's just tell people what it is. I guess it's
sure. Well, it's a little bit hard to answer that question. It's a little easier to answer the question, what is its purpose? And its purpose is to make developers faster and more efficient. I guess ultimately you say its purpose is to make developers more efficient, and then they can parlay that into either they're going to be faster or they're going to be able to spend more time thinking about the design, but still kind of be about the same speed.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking about typing in the word finally, you just don't do that anymore.
Right. In fact, there's macro, and I guess you call them templates.
Right.
There's these templates for every little piece of code that you want to write, including just like little words, but even big blocks of code like a try, catch, finally block. You could say TCF, space, boom, you've got a try, catch, finally block.
Right.
The properties, the property builders are perhaps the coolest thing. Tell us about those.
Well, there's a couple things going on here. One of the things with the templates is it's essentially a language. In order to make it easy to understand and easy to learn, we had to take things and break them down into small pieces that were consistent. So, for example, if you want to create a new property, the verb in the language is the letter P. And if you want the property to return a Boolean, the noun is a B. So you type in PB and hit the space bar, and it generates a property for you. And that's the essence of it. And then what we want to do is we want to keep that consistent. So if you want a method that's going to return a Boolean, you type in MB and hit the space bar. And that's kind of the essence of the template language. And then we go a little bit deeper, and we can actually bind a context to each template. So we can say the MB template that expands to a method that's a Boolean, we want it to expand with a full block when we're inside a class. But if we use that template inside an interface, we want it to expand to just the declaration part of it.
And the really cool part is, let's say you do that, like PS or property string. You not only get the property handler, but it makes a private member with the right case and all the design guidelines. You basically follow the .NET design guidelines for those. And so let's say you have underscore first name, right? And the property is first name is string. If you go and change the underscore first string, every first name, all of the other references to it change along with it at the same time.
Right. There's similar features that are coming out in WYDB as well.
Right.
One of the distinctions between the CodeRush implementation and what's coming out in WYDB is WYDB requires you to make the change right there in the one piece you're on, and then commit it by either tabbing out or hitting enter, and then it propagates that change everywhere.
Yeah.
And we felt it was a little bit more visual to show you the change everywhere that it was occurring, so that's what we did. And then the other thing to add on to that is that this is happening now in Visual Studio 2002 and 2003.
Right.
And with the release we're about to get out also will happen in WYDB as well. So.
What does Microsoft think of this? I mean, I remember at TechEd, I recommended that they look at this and make you an offer or something, because I'd love to see it in Visual Studio. I'd love to see everybody using it.
Well, we would too. Well, part of the reason, I think the reaction is mixed. I think there are people there that really like it and they see it, and we've had a couple of requests from people who need it that are in there. Another template group that we have are attributes. And so there are a lot of guys inside Microsoft that are writing a lot of attribute code. And so we've got a lot of stuff with attributes as well. And again, to make things simple, like if you're a VB programmer, your attributes all start with the angle bracket. And if you're in C#, it starts with the square bracket. So you start the attribute template with that first character, whatever that is, and then you just essentially pick the uppercase letters of the attribute, and it'll spit it out. So
that's very, very cool. And import statements, like you could type ISDS, and you get imports system data SQL client, or ISDC, right?
Yeah, you basically pick the uppercase letters of it, and if there's ambiguity, you'll get a set of choices.
Right,
but
you can scroll through them with a tab key.
You know, we didn't accidentally just stumble upon this. This, like I said, it's been in development for easily 7 years, and I actually started the template language probably about 10 years ago when I was working in a product called CodeRush, and they had templates and extensibility there, and it's evolved over time so that the templates got shorter and shorter and shorter because we really want it to be the smallest number of keystrokes possible.
And that's the thing I should say right up front. And Rory, have you used CodeRush or seen it?
I've used CodeRush, but what I've done is probably been similar to your experience, where it's been demoed to me, like by Scott Hanselman, for example, and that's when I've seen some of the really, really cool features.
Yeah. Well, the thing I really got to put across here is that it's very easy to just sort of categorize this as like an eye candy tool or something, that's gonna, who needs another wizard, But it really is not for morons. It's for hardcore developers. It's for people who write a lot of code. And you guys even use this, and you say you've been coding 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for as long as you can remember. And when you're writing code, you're using CodeRush, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about putting a joke in there. No, I'm using the same product. No, it's we use it to we use it to write itself essentially.
Right.
There's a few times where I have to work without it when I'm doing some particular build or working on something in particular, but in general we like 90-something% of the time where everybody on the team is using it.
Yeah. And the fact is, it's just and there's a lot to it, and that's the other side of the coin. Is that right out of the box, it works really well. But if you really want to you really ought to take some time to set up. If you're really talking about shaving off a lot of time in development.
Your earlier comment about it not being for morts, that's I should probably say just a little bit on that. I think that this is the kind of product that you can get a lot out of if you're willing to dive in and tackle the learning curve. There is a learning curve associated with it.
Yes.
It's not like you're going to, if you just install it and you do nothing else, you'll maybe get a 2 or 3% increase in productivity. Not much.
Oh, I think more than that.
Well, yeah, I guess it's a little bit. It's not a lot.
Okay.
But there are some benefits that happen without doing any research. Like there is the latest release we're about to come out has something called structural highlighting, which basically draws little light little connecting lines between like blocks, like a trifinally or something.
Right. So you started this product for Delphi, right?
That's right. And I was a Delphi. I was really a Pascal guy for a long time. I had some training in BASIC a long time ago. I want to say like 20 years ago or something like that. I've done some assembly stuff. I was punching in hex code numbers a long time ago on a little Z80 board that I had. And
it all comes back to Z80 somehow, doesn't it?
Pascal was a lot better than those other things that when at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it for a long time. And I remember I was talking to one of the guys over at Borland, and this was at a time when they were actually talking to me about getting the CDK, which was the component developer kit, which was at the time was a really, really cool code generator. It was cool because at the time all other code generators would stick in little comments, say, "Don't touch this code," or else you'll break things, that kind of thing.
They do that now in Visual Studio.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The component designer generated code. Do not modify it using the code editor. The first thing I do when I teach people this is like, all right, let's modify this using the code editor.
In there, yeah. Well, that.
Get rid of that. Get rid of that.
Well, just to show you that the reason that they don't want you in there is not because you can't rewrite their code, but because you don't own it.
Sure. Well, but they do a really good job of parsing that, So you can,
they do.
In Visual Studio, you can make changes. It's essentially two-way. But back in those days when CDK came out, this stuff wasn't two-way. And we basically said, well, look, let's throw away this concept of storing the structure of your design in a separate file. Let's use the source.
Yeah.
And so CDK was kind of revolutionary at the time. And Borland was talking to us about putting the CDK actually inside Delphi 3. And I remember at the time I was talking to one of the guys at Borland, and I said, I have this idea for this other product. It's kind of a code, a productivity enhancer, kind of editor plugin kind of thing.
Yeah. And
I'm going to break into your IDE in a way that I know you guys aren't going to like. This is how I'm going to do it. And they were like, well, that's not the approved way of getting in. And that's essentially what started it. Was a little bit of that discussion, and I know how I can get in, and I'm getting in. So,
and if you never met Mark, I mean, he's just a very energetic person all the time, on. Showing him the preview of the .NET Rocks movie, Roy. It wasn't just like, hey, come check out the movie. It was like, hey, dude, pause that for a minute. Yeah, I've been to film school. Let me give you a couple of pointers. He's like, now if you turn your head this way and your head this way, you can. He's like drawing graphs and stuff on the whiteboard. Yeah, and he actually gave me a lot of great pointers. And I'm really, really soaking it all up too.
I saved him like a 4-year education.
He totally did. Yeah, he totally did. So this is the kind of the mind that CodeRush came out of. So.
Well, I'm also extremely impatient. I'm so impatient. Like when I listen to your show, I crank up the speed to like 2 or 3 times, and you guys are all sounding like the Alvins, the Chipmunks. Because I just can't sit there for that long. It's got to go faster.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of well suited for doing this kind of product. I'm naturally extremely impatient.
So what? All right. Well, what made you decide to abandon Delphi and move over to VisualStudio.net?
Well, I think I was. The short answer is that I was frustrated with some of the, lack of momentum I was seeing out of Borland in the IDE.
Okay.
And they were about to release the C# builder at the time, and I was like, let's where's the next version of Delphi?
Right.
And at the time I had my own company. I wasn't with Developer Express. And one of the things I was, kind of getting from other vendors and that were, in the third-party market was, market is shrinking. And for us, we weren't quite seeing it yet, but other vendors were seeing it, I was getting this warning kind of from other vendors.
Yeah.
And, kind of comes out and, you're at a conference and the other vendors are saying, how are your sales doing? That kind of thing. And you're like, there's a bit of concern in their voices. And so, these things were happening, and there were some signs that the market was declining. And I was like, you guys, I need you guys to come up with a new great product. Because when you are in our position, we're essentially hooking on. We're almost,
right.
we're hooking on with the host application. If the host application
kind of like a parasite.
Yeah, I was going to use the word parasite, and I was thinking, that's not going to. The marketing folks back.
Kind of like a blood-sucking squirm sucker.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We're a little parasitic in the sense that the way we hop right in. But if you're going to be in that business of selling this kind of add-on, the host that you're hooking onto has got to be crappy enough that other people see value in your product, right?
Okay.
And yet at the same time, it's got to be good enough that it generates a market for you.
Right.
And they have to kind of persist that level over time, and you have to leapfrog them and just be ahead of them all the time.
Right.
I was telling you earlier, I think, most people, I think when they think of a shelf life of a feature, they think of, well, okay, I'll invest the time, I'll write the feature, this is going to last me about 2 years. And then maybe my competitors will catch up or something along the lines. But I've got 2 years on this, so it's worth this much, this many developers, this much investment, this much resources. I think a lot shorter. I think, for me, my minimum cutoff on shelf life is about 6 months. So if I can get 6 months out of something, I'll put 1 or 2 developers on that. Go ahead.
When was the last time you took a vacation?
An official vacation was a long, long time ago. Something that actually had the word vacation.
When?
Like I want to say, 20-something, 18 years ago maybe, something like that. There's that I can think of. You guys are all shaking your heads. You guys are acting like these Europeans. I know I've got probably European listeners, or at least will soon. But man, I'm going to say I'm a little bit critical of you Europeans. You take way too many holidays. Okay.
Yeah, including lunch.
I'm like, I work with some of these guys. Some of these guys are like on my team, and they're like, oh, well, I have another holiday. And I'm like, another holiday? Come on, man. Come on, I'm over here. I'm working all night. Come on, you can be with the team.
You just took a 3-hour lunch.
You're just like
you're wasted on wine.
And they're like saying, well, Mark, there's other things to life. You should enjoy. I'm like, a holiday. I can't believe it. So and it's the Europeans. I got 2 guys on my team that are from Russia, and they're like, Mark, can we take a holiday? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Not till the products are out. And they go, but when the products are out, it'll be cold here in Russia, and we'll be okay. I say, you're getting the products out now. Get those products out.
Yeah,
so, I don't know. Some people don't see eye to eye with, with me on some of these issues.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm writing this down. Remember never to work for Mark Miller. Okay, there we go. So you weren't seeing a level of innovation with Borland, and you had just received the award from them like 6 months earlier, so they must have been pretty crushed, or were they?
Yeah, I think they were a little bit upset, but but to me it was the thing that really bothers me, I think, the most out of it was really my customers, because when this was before I moved to Developer Express, I had a huge following of fanatic Delphi CodeRush users,
right?
And they were all like, Mark, why aren't you committing to Delphi? When is it coming out? I see you're going to do a Visual Studio product. You talked about that. When's this other thing, coming out? And I couldn't commit to it. I couldn't commit to it because I didn't see, I had no sense of when this other thing was coming, how good it was going to be, and they had already also warned me that they were changing the IDE around, I think, and that which would cause a number of rewrites on my part anyway.
Obviously, the link between these two environments and all the things you're doing is Anders Hallsberg, right?
Right.
So how was it moving from writing plugins for Delphi to writing for Visual Studio .NET? Similar, better, worse? What's the story there?
It's kind of a mix, I guess. At first, I think for probably the first 5 weeks, I really hated C#. All I was thinking about was all the limitations compared to my previous environment. Yeah. And I would create I had this list of what sucks about C#, and I would say I'd see something, I'd say, let me go add that to the list. And then we had this other we had this whiteboard. We were all in this. It was actually kind of a cool time because we had like three guys at any time in one apartment, and we were all writing code like 16 hours a day, every day. And then, one time I had to go drive back home, and I found out the other guys were like hanging out by the pool the whole weekend. Can you believe it? Man. So anyway, but we're all there.
Europeans.
Yeah, one of them was.
That's good, Rory.
One of them was a European, man, just like that. Just like I mean, show me a European country where they're not taking holidays all the time. What's going on, man?
All right. Don't send me emails. I didn't say that. Okay.
All right. So
I love Europeans. I love all Europeans.
They're great, except for they take too many holidays, man.
This show is going downhill.
All right, I'll
sick. That's what you are.
All right, man.
All right.
So we're all in there writing code. What the heck was your question there?
I don't know. It was about Anders Hallsberg and Turbo Pascal and then C#.
We had this whiteboard, and we had on the our to-do list, our task list, and I guess number 7 was kick Anders Hallsberg's ass, right? And that kept bubbling up as I would see things like why the heck didn't you put virtual static methods in here in C#?
And this was in C#.
Yeah,
okay.
This was in C#, right? Because I'm running into obstacles because I tend to work in a really decoupled architecture, right? I want to have classes. The whole plugin architecture is about doing things like instantiating much later, and we're instantiating instances of classes that we have no idea about when we compile.
Right.
Like you're going to write a plugin, we want to instantiate you. And in order to do that, we want to, in some of the classes we have, we want to get a little bit of information about you before we create you.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And so one of the best way to do that is with a virtual static method, because I can just make a call on an ancestor that provides some sort of default, answer, and then you'll override that in your plugin. I'll get a little bit of information. I'll say, okay, I got that information. When I say static, what's the equivalent in VB? Shared.
Yeah.
Okay, So I'd make that, and I get my information and say, okay, now I'm going to create you in this appropriate way for you.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't exist. So what we have to do instead is we have to use attributes and reflection. And since then, my obsession with kicking Anders' butt, and now that he knows this, like he's going to run away from me every time I say, hey, Anders, how's it going? but my obsession with that is it's off the list. It's like this is such all of the issues that I essentially put on my list, we found essentially workarounds to, or maybe better ways of doing things, and we were like relatively okay. I still would love to have virtual static methods, but I'm okay with it. And part of the reason why I'm okay with it is because I got some other guys too that are writing that code that I don't have to touch. So.
And you actually met him and talked about some of this stuff with him, right?
Yeah, it was good because, well, first of all, before that, I had like weeks of therapy, right? Anger, aggression, kind of, management therapy. So I knew I was okay.
Kill Cluso.
So I met him I met him twice actually. I met him in a Borland conference. I want to say like 12 years ago, maybe.
Wow.
I went up to him. Now, this is the guy that also was the architect for Turbo Pascal.
Right.
And at the time, I'd been working, like I say, massively, loads of hours in Pascal. He was at the conference at some special, social event at a museum. It was in San Francisco of innovation, I think is what it was, or something like that. I go up to him and I say, wow, Anders Hallsberg, this is like meeting my God. You create my world that I live in every day. and he's like looking at me like I'm some kind of freak, you know, and you know, he's kind of, you know, trying to back away, looking for, you know, somebody to get him out of a conversation, but you know, that was my first meeting with him, and it was really remarkable. So.
And so when you got into Visual Studio and you started looking at the architecture, were there things that impressed you about the .NET platform that didn't exist in Delphi? Or
yeah,
things...
well, there's, you know, yeah, actually, there's, you know, I told you all the negative stuff because this was like the first time I'm diving in after, you know, all this experience.
Right,
I think whenever you change a language, your natural reaction is anger. Why don't they have this particular thing? You know, and then you go, you know, the other ones, you got denial and bargaining. You know, at one point I was, you know, trying to exchange, you know, virtual methods for a better lifestyle, and
then acceptance finally.
And finally acceptance, right? And I'm cool now. And so,
complacency.
So there, when I first got in and was looking at the .NET architecture, there were some brilliant things. I would see things where I would say, "Look at this, man! We can do this in like 2 lines of code."
Yeah.
Here's an example of a brilliant C# thing. The for each language construct is brilliant. It's sweet. It reduces complexity of the code. It makes it easier to understand.
We had that before. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I just had something in my throat.
All right. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I saw that and I said that is really, really good. And then just .NET architectural things. It was easier to do things. The .NET architecture was much better than the architecture I previously lived on. The second thing that was really, I think, very, very impressive to me, and this is like something that only somebody that's trying to hook into the Visual Studio would appreciate, is I was looking at their interfaces inside Visual Studio for, you know, how you hook in with the editors, and I was seeing stuff in there that I've been asking, you know, Borland for like years, and it was already there. And I was like, "This is sweet," you know. I've got, and also I was seeing a lot of indications of that whoever designed this was thinking really, really hard about making this right. And so those were 2 of my other reactions early on. So there was a balance between, you know, kind of my natural kind of, you know, not wanting to get into this other new language and this other thing, which was, you know, I was seeing real signs of brilliance and beauty over here.
Wow.
So.
That's awesome, and again, it's been out since February, CodeRush.
Right.
And you're coming out with a new version, I guess. There was some.
Right, we have an update. I'm sorry. I was just going to say we have an update. I think it's probably going to be here on Monday is when I think it'll be.
Right.
So, and that's a free update to anybody who's got it now, and I'm sure they'll be notified.
Yeah. Very cool. Well,
along those lines, along the next version lines, something I was wondering about. First of all, there's some people in the chat room who are saying that I can't talk as quickly as you can. I just want to point out that I can still talk pretty quickly myself. Okay, and I wanted to say that so Whidbey's coming out, and you were talking earlier about how some of the features that we've seen in CodeRush are showing up in Whidbey, at least in some form or another. You have to tab through, or you have to accept each change. Are you planning any like super whiz bang changes to CodeRush to extend its scope a little bit wider, so that some of the areas that are being competed for by Whidbey, so you've just got more going on? And I know that I do work for the man, and you might not want to tell me these things, but I'm happy to listen.
Well, you know, we I guess the answer is yes. One of the interesting features that's coming out in Whidbey is called Definition Window, is what I think it's called. And the essence of the feature is as you move the caret around, it shows you the declaration for the piece under the caret. And when I say caret, I mean cursor for everybody else, right? So for us, we got to call caret versus cursor because it's real specific what we're talking about. But when I say us, I mean on the team. But so that actually is a feature that came out in CodeRush for I think Delphi 4 is when we had something very similar. It was actually a little bit cooler than the one that they're putting out now. We had things where a really, really sweet thing where if you put the caret on a method call, and that method call had inherited side effects, you would see those in a UML diagram live on the fly that would only show you the inherited side effects. As an example, what I mean by that is if I call a method, it's got an override, you know, that it overrides another one. Well, it's most likely going to call the virtual, and we can see that inherited chain. And we can jump to those by clicking on the pieces in there. So that's an example of something that, and there's kind of 2 things going on here. One of the things that's going on here is it's information in parallel, right? You're seeing the code. When you have a question on the code, you move your eyes down, right? And then the answer to your question is most likely there, like what type is this, or what is this declared? What does this method look like?
Right.
Okay. And then the second thing that's going on there is that in addition to showing you the code, we also sometimes under the right conditions we show you the UML diagram. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to basically up the ante on that particular feature for Whidbey sometime in the future. I can't say exactly when this is going to come out, but we're gonna push this thing to the limit. So it's going to be kind of like I think it's going to sound really hokey when I say this, but it's going to be like having like a really, really good programmer right next to you all the time, and if you have a question, you just move your eyes a few degrees, and the answer to your question is going to be there. And that's cool. The essence of it. And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you ever read Chris Sell's site, sellsbrothers.com?
Sometimes, yeah, I do. His dad said something like, "Don't mix the goddamn jelly and the peanut butter," or something like that.
you do read it, because he did write about that. But there was another post called "Good Idea Builders in Visual Studio Code View." Did you happen to see this one?
No,
because
I didn't see that one.
This is something that is not implemented in Whidbey, and CodeRush doesn't do it right now either. And it's at knockgartner.com/posts/509.aspx. And it really is a very cool feature. And I mean, I'm just saying that I personally would like to be coding with this. And if it's not going to show up in Whidbey,
wait. Are these the little kind of like drop down folders that come in the code, that show up in the code? It's like you type in I think the example on that site is like for doing I want to say SQL paths.
An XPath.
Or an XPath, right? Yeah, I did see that. I have seen that. Yeah, I did see that. I had some good and negative reaction. One of the positive reactions is it's a great idea to put tools to help you do things that are very complex in a flat style. In other words, it's not a modal dialog that comes up. It's something that, if you don't want it, you can click somewhere else on the code. Flat is good. Having assistance in building code is good. However, if I was, on the either the language teams or the .NET architecture team, that's the signal to me from that would be, hey, we got to make the architecture easier to work with, so people don't have to do this crap to begin with. That would be the first place I'd want to fix that. The second reaction I had is at least the examples that they had on that page obscured a huge amount of code, and I really don't. I really am against putting up any kind of UI that hides your code. Frequently you need to see it. And so I try to keep everything really minimalistic. So that was kind of a reaction as well. And then I guess my third thing is I guess I was thinking, well, any of these areas that are problems, Microsoft probably is going to come back and say, you know what, yeah, that was hard to work with. Here's an easier way in the next version. It's going to totally rip apart the need for it anyway. So there are good things and bad things, but I want to kind of solve the problem in a smaller way, definitely non-modal way. So
okay, all right.
But
okay. that's very satisfying.
The moral of the story is don't mix the peanut butter with the jelly. That's the moral of the story, right? Ever. Keep them separate.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to pause here for a feature that we do on the show called the Weird Wide Web with Kirk Webb. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Amazing. Pretty good.
Horrible.
This is where we strive.
Jeez, Carl, you ask the guy how he's doing, then you put on the music, you bastard.
I'm sorry, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. That's my fault.
Fired.
I picked you.
Fired. Nice.
So, sorry about that. What is happening, my friend?
Well, lots are going on, actually. I've been scouring the web.
And by the way, for those who don't know what this is the epitome of high culture on .NET Rocks. This is where we strive to achieve perfection and greatness, and it's all about development and coding and programming.
And ethical conduct.
As a matter of fact, we have a new .NET Rocks Ethics Committee, and we've appointed Kirk Webb to be the president of that committee. Congratulations, Kirk.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's a mighty honor.
We didn't talk about it, Carl, but can I be the treasurer?
Of
Yeah.
course. All right. So what you got for us?
Well, today I'd like to introduce everyone to Modern Moist Towelette Collecting. This is shrinkster.com/KS. That's Kilo Sierra at shrinkster.com. Modern Moist Towelette Collecting. These guys take their moist towelette collecting very seriously. We have the gallery, the awards, the MMTC, that's Modern Moist Towelette Collecting theme song.
Oh, no.
As well as a Moist Towelette Remember game and an all-new interactive anatomy of a moist towelette
This is insane.
It's actually a pretty cool site. There's the awards is actually probably my favorite. The site actually is pretty slow.
Yes, it is. I was noticing it.
Surprise.
They did the typical thing of taking a 4 gigabyte
Yeah.
image and shrinking it to a thumbnail. Yeah.
Running off a Mac. We had this conversation last time.
Yeah. Let me play the.
I actually like this because I think Tellets
They
are
are
cool.
pretty cool.
Let me play the song here.
The words to the song are there someplace. It's very cool.
You're soft.
You're soft.
You're wet. You sound so good.
I love you, Morris Talent. I love you, Morris Talent. I love you, Morris Talent.
That'll be quite enough of that.
I feel so dirty, man, after hearing that song.
Really.
I need a moist towelette, I think.
Yikes.
So what do they? What's in the gallery, for example?
The gallery is just moist towelettes from around the world. The awards section is actually the best.
These guys need. I wonder why they couldn't afford, a real ISP so that they could serve up their moist towelette pictures and things.
I think my favorite is the strangest place to find a towelette. They actually have the Wizard of Oz on ice towelette. What? Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Special purpose?
They should be handed out everywhere. The sad thing is that
They're
there
not.
are places considered strange to receive tellets. It should be weird to not receive a
And that,
tellet when you
and
go
that coming
someplace.
from Rory is unbiased opinion right there. You are a moist towelette.
Well, not handing out a towelette is like handing out gonorrhea.
That's a very good point. I mean, I can't remember how many times I've been in line for gonorrhea and haven't. Well, that's another story entirely. It really is.
All right, so what else do we have?
Ooh, anyway, we have an update.
I know a place you won't have to wait in line. But
This is part of Roy's relationship thing
Yeah,
that we were
exactly.
talking about
That's
earlier.
what we were talking about.
I think Rory's confused. Anyway,
Yeah, you don't need therapy for that. You need some penicillin, man.
hey, penicillin's overrated. It really is. Ooh, anyway,
Just eat a moldy orange. It's the same effect. Eat some blue cheese.
hot iron. Anyway.
Show's going downhill, Carl.
This show is going downhill.
Gutter.
666.
This is an update to our favorite, the Tron guy.
Oh, yeah.
Prankster.com/KT, that's Kilo Tango, is our update. Yeah, pretty scary, huh? This is our Tron guy, our favorite Tron guy.
Who knew this guy was so famous?
Jay Maynard. He actually, to be honest with you, we were actually late in the game. We only caught on him last week. He's already been on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Wow.
And has his own show.
You obviously know class when you see it.
Yeah, I'm all about class.
Yeah. So
To be honest with you,
So what is this? This is like a live theater thing where he's going to be there signing autographs or something?
Before a presentation of Tron in Austin, Texas. I really wish we could have known about this, or if it was local, and have him on the show. How cool would that
Is it
be?
today?
Today and tomorrow, yeah.
Oh my God!
But the problem is this is a radio show, so if we have him on with this toot, then
what's the
the
point
best
of that?
part is
Well, that's footage for next year's .NET Rocks movie.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, enough of him.
Enough of him. What's
All
next?
right, my third and final entry for
Thank
this week.
God.
You can only take me in small doses. Shrinkster.com/KU. That's Kilo Uniform. Thank you.
Very good. What would we do with that mark here?
This is bumper jumper.
Uncle Booger's bumper dumper.
Need some moist towelettes with that thing.
That's great.
All right, so what is this really?
It's actually a toilet seat. You can. It's actually attached to it looks like a trailer hitch. You can actually buy and put on the back of your car or truck.
It's better than assembling a little toity out of logs with fire ants on them.
The question is, what happens
No, it
if
isn't.
if Uncle Booger is on the toilet and cousin Tiny drives away? Are you stuck
really.
there in traffic?
God bless America. So it says at the end. Well,
It is. It's all about that.
so can you order these things?
$14.95.
Such a deal.
It's actually the exact same price as AstroWare past life software.
Oh my! It's a 500-pound booger bumper dumper holder.
That is. Goodbye, Uncle Booger.
Amazing.
Goodbye, Uncle Booger.
Horrible.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll catch you on the other side of the hour after we pay the bills and listen to some music. So are you struggling with some reporting software that's way too complicated for what you're trying to do? Are you just trying to make a couple of reports to spit out in an application? Or 10, 11, 12, 20 reports, but you don't really want to set up a reporting server and it's not that kind of a situation? Well, you got to check out ActiveReports.net from Data Dynamics. www.datadynamics.com. They're an avid sponsor of .NET Rocks. They've been with us pretty much since we started doing live shows, and they're great stuff. We went to them and we said we'd like you to be a sponsor because we believe in your products, and they signed up with us. And what can I say? The greatest thing about ActiveReports.net is that the reports don't exist on a server somewhere. They exist with your code built into your assemblies, and you can use Windows controls and web controls to highlight the features of the report. You can just compile them right in and they work. And the best part about it is it's not going to break the bank. Very, very good and affordable licensing schemes. And I personally use it. I have a lot of regional director friends and MVP friends and just friends in general that use ActiveReports.net and swear by it. So check them out.
Gone away the fireflies that I saw from my brother's eyes. Gone away the summers of my dreams. Racing cans down Irving Street, safe and warm in the evening. Someone always looking out for me. Trade you a Steely for that candy bar. Sleep in the back of my daddy's car. I know he'll tuck me in when we get home. When I was 16, I drove that car, fly away so fast, so far. Try to find someone else who thinks like me. Who do I turn to? Who can I trust? The house next door has an impenetrable crust. Such a big neighborhood and yet so all alone. In my dream factory. My dream factory. You're just a kid, what the hell do you know? What have you learned from your life down below? Love and happiness won't pay for things you need. Like a dream factory. Like a dream factory. Like a dream factory. When I was a child, I knew more than I know now. Hey,
And that was Mr. Rory Blythe with his original song entitled Bitches. Gotta come up with a better name.
We should have played the Chris Sell song.
Oh, we're going to, but I didn't want to just play it.
Whoops, okay.
I didn't want to just play it and not have any context for it. So why don't you tell everybody what it is, what the Chris Sell song is?
Oh, well, all right, okay. So if any of you haven't heard, Chris Sells, who's this, he's this computer guy.
Yeah, I know Chris Sells.
Does computer stuff. He went to this thing called Burning Man, which is this giant festival out in the middle of the desert where all these hippies get together and stink at each other for a few days and kind of like swat at each other's flies. And Chris went out there with his kilt, right? Because the deal is that if you go to Burning Man and you're not wearing something really nasty like 3-year-old underwear or no underwear at all and maybe just like your own... I'm not going to finish that sentence. Just the point is, when you go to Burning Man, you want to kind of stick out a little bit. And if you aren't sticking out, then you are sticking out, if that makes any sense. And so Chris didn't want to stick out, so he went out there with his kilt, and he went out there with his wife. And I was sitting in a hotel room in Denver, and I was all by myself, and I had just read Chris's blog entry about it, and I was just kind of bored, and there's no air in Denver, so I was a little bit loopy. And I wrote this song using a wastebasket, and I was just singing. Although, are we going to play the original or the remix?
Both. Yeah, we'll start with the original, right?
Oh, okay.
So here's the original Burning.
And then after the original, this... Oh, okay.
Here's the original Burning.
I hear Chris when dancing all around, when dancing up a storm in his tartan man gown, when dancing round a fire, round a pie and round again. I hear Chris when dancing with his love at Burning Man. They asked him where his love could then be found. He said that's her there, dancing round and round. I love her more than life, as much as I love Mom. Heck, I love her more than Dawn loves Calm. I hear Chris when dancing all around, when dancing up a storm in his tartan man gown, when dancing round a fire, round a pie and round again. I hear Chris when dancing with his love at Burning Man. Dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, you're not wearing any pants. Dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, you're not wearing any pants. They found him the next day, no longer on his feet. He was sleeping on the ground like a royal deadbeat. The mad dog had run dry, his needs had all been met, and yet he cried because he missed his dear.net. I hear Chris when dancing all around, when dancing up a storm in his tartan man gown, when dancing round a fire, round a pie and round again. I hear Chris when dancing with his love at Burning Man.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Very nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I wrote that little guy and then recorded it and put it out on the web, and I thought that would be the end of it. It'd be a little bit of fun we'd have, just for a couple of days. And then this buddy of mine, Jason Olson at geekswithblogs.net/JOlson, sends me an email on Friday night, and he says something like, hey, I've got a present for you, and I didn't want to put it up on my blog because I thought you might find it offensive. And I listened to it, and I was just on the floor, just crying. I could not believe what I was hearing. So I call this the Jason Olson Psychedelic Lederhosen Remix.
I hear Chris when dancing all around, when dancing up a storm in his tartan man gown, when dancing round a fire, round a pie and round again. I hear Chris when dancing with his love at Burning Man. They asked him where his love could then be found. He said that's her there, dancing round and round. I love her more than life, as much as I love Mom. Heck, I love her more than Dawn loves Calm. I hear Chris when dancing all around, when dancing up a storm in his tartan man gown, when dancing round a fire, round a pie and round again. I hear Chris when dancing with his love at Burning Man. Dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, you're not wearing any pants. Dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance, dance, Chris, dance,
break it down.
Not wearing any pants. They found him the next day, no longer on his feet. He was sleeping on the ground like a royal deadbeat. The man had dry, his knees all been met.
Excellent.
Yet he cried because he missed his date.net. I hear Chris when dancing
Oh my God,
this is so awesome.
that was, you don't understand.
Yeah, so that was done by a buddy who just kind of ran.
I just
through
had a
and put that
spiritual
behind the
experience.
song.
This was
Religion.
Rory, man. That
I'm like between that and the toilet seat that goes in the back of your truck. I'm like on the best show you
Again,
guys have ever
we
done.
have to like take a pause
Chat
here
room,
because
chat room's like again.
you just don't know how awesome that was. I mean, I really seriously saw God there.
I saw P-Funk in concert. Nothing on that.
No, that's just awesome. Oh my God. Well, anyway, Rory, this is the time in the show when you do that little segment we like to call Ask Rory, and we still don't have music.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry about that, but basically, Rory Blythe answers your questions on life, love, relationships, fashion, dancing, and jobs, and, what else? Just about anything that you could possibly imagine. So we would like people to send their questions to Rory@neopolian.com, and he'll give them some thought and answer them on the show. So what you got?
Okay, I've got one this week. I actually got a few, but I'm gonna. One of them was a little bit almost like too deep for the show. I might do it eventually, but not this one. So the thing that's kind of weird is that they were serious questions this week. So I've got this guy. His name is Ralph Luitzo, and he says, "So love.net rocks, etc., etc., etc. I've been building business applications for business for 6+ years. First in VB, then VB Access, now using .net. I like C#, I like C-like languages, and so on and so forth. Because I'm on a limited range of knowledge and a limited budget, I've been wondering if it's worth developing DB apps with MySQL and C# as opposed to SQL Server. We don't currently have SQL Server. We're going to make the change soon to something better. What do you think? Should we go Windows Server 2003 plus SQL Server, or stick with a WinXP computer running MySQL? What I would say is that I've had some luck with MySQL. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. But if you're going to be doing .NET stuff, you might as well go with something that, like from the ground up had SQL Server in mind. And you can use MSDE right now, which is basically just the SQL Server engine with a workload governor on it. So it starts to slow down after you have 5 open connections. But a lot of projects out there really aren't ever going to hit 5 open connections anyway. And you can, do some aggressive caching to prevent that from taking place. And once the SQL Server Express is out, you're going to be able to you'll have a full SQL Server install that you can use, provided it's on a server that only has 1 CPU. And then there's like a RAM limit. I forget what the RAM limit is, but it's something that's more than some production servers I've used that were running full-blown SQL Server. So you do have some options. You don't have to go the MySQL route if you don't want to. You can stick with WinXP, install MSDE, and use it just like you'd be using SQL Server.
Well, that was funny.
That cost maybe like
that was really funny, Rory.
$20 plus. Well, you know what though?
Jeez, stop.
He had a serious question. He had a serious question, and I'm answering his question. So
the guy gets hired at Microsoft, man.
I know.
Man.
What's happening to you, man?
I got a serious question. I gave a serious answer. What am I supposed to do?
What's happening, Rory? Can't you see it? The man has got you. You've got to break.
Well,
free.
I can see it, but it's through my Borg visor, so it looks kind of weird.
So, Mark, let's talk about this new product that you're working on that does refactoring.
Sure. This product's not out yet. It's probably going to hit beta like early next week, and it'll be available to subscribers at Developer Express. It's a refactoring tool, and I think the minute I say that, there are going to be people out there that say, "Oh, what is he, crazy?" Yeah. There's already ReSharper, and there's another C# refactory tool out there, I think, and then of course Whidbey's coming out with refactoring as well.
Right.
And then they're also probably thinking, well, wait, didn't he say 6 months? Is Mark going to make a product that's only going to have a total shelf life of 6 months? No, it's actually this is a serious commitment to this tool. It is a refactoring tool. It's got a number of really cool innovations.
And also Whidbey, a lot of the refactoring support is just for C#, right?
That's what we understand so far.
And your tool works with both.
Right, yeah, and we didn't specify that with CodeRush either, but one of the neat things about the CodeRush architecture is that it is essentially language agnostic. We have support plugins that understand the language, how to parse whatever language, and then also how to generate code, and then CodeRush exploits those, and our refactoring product also exploits those. So right now we have support for C# and Visual Basic, and so what that means is when we're building a refactoring plugin for the refactoring tool, we write it without any kind of sense of what the destination language or the source language is. And what's cool about that is that we compile it and then we run it, and we can work it either under VB or under C#. So
cool.
So that's the essence of the architecture.
And it uses so the refactoring product uses the CodeRush engine.
Right. And that's one of the things I didn't mention. This is actually kind of cool. The CodeRush engine is essentially free. You can download it from our site, and it includes wizards for creating your own plugins. It's a really powerful plugin architecture. If you want to extend Visual Studio in a way that, if you want to do custom painting on the editor, we got that nailed. And I don't even think Microsoft's going to be able to have as great of architecture as we have, for a couple years.
Yeah.
It's really easy to do. As an example, and the other thing is it's all component-based, component-driven. So if you want to build a component that, like, say, for example, paints XML comments in a particular way, like formats them, for example, there's an event called Paint Language Element, and you just double-click on that event in the property inspector, you get some code, and then the event args that come in have got loads of methods for, doing painting and lines and all sorts of stuff to make it really easy, so you don't have to worry about, like, where the heck is this on screen, or is it even on screen? You just get this event if it's on screen.
One thing I like, and it wasn't really obvious, is that you were showing me this stuff earlier today, and I was talking about, there's one little piece of code that I need to use over and over again when I'm using components on multiple threads, and I need to access the iSynchronize invoke interface of some sort of synchronizing object, like the timer component does, for example. When it gets a timer callback, that callback is happening on another thread, and it can't raise the tick event right there at that point, because that would be allowing the programmer, the consumer of that component, to use the event and write code in that event handler, which would be on another thread, and that's a no-no in Windows. So you basically brought me through the whole process of turning all of that code, plus the references and the imports and all that stuff, into like a template with like 4 keystrokes in the spacebar.
Yeah, I think it was 2 keystrokes. Cool.
That's right.
You wanted
2 keystrokes.
You wanted to do more, and I was saying no, make it less, because the reason why we can do this is that each template has a context associated with it.
Yeah.
So we know if you're in a method or a class. And what we did is we said, let's make it so this only expands when we're inside a class, but we're not in a method, not in a property, not in a string, not in a comment. And that was the context we assigned to this, and it was just SO, I think, right, for synchronization objects.
Synchronizing object.
And so now you can just type in SO, hit the space bar, and it'll give you that when you're in that context. When you're inside a method, it doesn't. Yeah, we're back to CodeRush, though, talking about the CodeRush, but the refactoring product runs on the CodeRush engine. And I guess one of the things to point out is that if we can release a product that's built on the engine that does something as complex as refactoring, it gives you a good indication of the power and the design that we put into making this easy to extend Visual Studio. And we made the core free because we wanted to inspire people to write plugins for it and share them with other developers without forcing them to buy the product. Yeah,
and also without having to learn the plugin syntax and the add-in syntax and all that other stuff that's really difficult to do.
Now, this is not in the plugin world in terms of extending Visual Studio, there's like the extensibility model, which is a relatively easy way to get in to Visual Studio. This comes with Visual Studio built in. And then there's another way to get in known as VSIP. And the extensibility model has kind of got some easy stuff. You can do code generation and some things like that. And VSIP allows you to do really complex things like create your own language service. If you wanted to create your own language and compiler, that sort of thing. And where CodeRush fits in is kind of between the two. It has a lot of power. In fact, some things you can do in CodeRush that you just can't do in VSIP at all. And then it is also very, very easy to use.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So back to refactoring.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to say what I think are the cool things about the refactoring product. Okay. Probably number one cool thing is you don't have to memorize a bunch of keystrokes for a bunch of different refactorings. It's one key entry point to refactoring. So we got one key, you hit it, and just like templates are contextually aware, our refactorings are also contextually aware, but to a much stronger sense. They understand where you are in the code, whether they're appropriate or not, that sort of thing.
So what kinds of things can you do with it?
Well, you've got like some of the real popular ones. You've got like extract method.
Which does?
Oh, sorry. It takes a chunk of code, out of a big method and puts it in its own method, gives you the calling subproc with all the parameters passed to it, and then
calls the proc, right?
And it calls the proc, and then on the declaration side you get everything that you need.
It's very cool, and that's one keystroke basically.
Yes,
right?
yeah. Select the block you want to remove, hit the keystroke. That's it.
Sweet.
And we have another one. We have a refactoring called Introduced Explaining Variable, which is I know some of these names we're basically taking them from Martin Fowler, and some of them I'm thinking, God, I'm going to call it Fowler right now. Okay. Tell him he's just bumped up over Anders Heilsberg, and I'm coming over there because I don't like the name of this refactoring. But you can't change that. So we really played with that idea of changing the names from a UI standpoint, but we ended up kind of going, let's stick with the names that most people know if they've read Martin Fowler's book Refactoring.
Okay.
So Introduce Explaining Variable, what it does is essentially, if you've got an expression throughout the code that's repeated, it says, you know what, let's take that and give it a name that is meaningful, as opposed to having this expression repeat itself everywhere. Okay. So that's the same kind of thing. You basically select the expression, hit the key. Same key that you hit before to extract the method. And it creates a variable and replaces all their expressions of the variable. Exactly, declares it. Now some people maybe would think, well, what about ambiguity? What happens if there's more than one refactoring available? Right. And it's just a menu comes up and says, extract method, whatever the other option choices that you have. Sweet. Another one of the really cool features that we have in this is the ability to simplify complex expressions. So we've got a really powerful expression simplification engine. So you can take like this massively complex if statement with loads of nots and ands and ors and all of these things, and you can say simplify the expression, and it will now resolve it to its simplest form. Nice. This is the kind of thing that makes if you demonstrate this, people are saying, oh wow, that's great, you saved me like 30 characters or 10 characters. It doesn't look that impressive, but if you are a high-end developer and you're maintaining code and you want to make it better and you're in there looking at it, there's a risk associated with you doing that, because if you make a mistake, you've introduced a bug, and if you don't have a test case for this particular flow, you've introduced a bug that won't be caught. Yeah. And so there's a risk, and so as a high-end developer, when you're in there looking at maintaining code, you know that risk, and you always weigh that before you go in to these kinds of gnarly methods or gnarly expressions. Right. And what's really cool is we have a safe, fast way to be able to take that, and if you just instead of having this huge barrier, this huge cost associated with it, we've now got it where you can do this on a whim if you want to. And now that kind of gives you a little more freedom as a maintenance programmer, where you can go in and say, hey, you know what, I see I've got some complex, nested conditionals here, and I want to replace those nested conditionals with guard clauses. Yeah. I'm just going to hit a button and do it. As opposed to, okay, now I got to take this, move this up, let's carefully reverse this, and make sure you're maintaining your focus through all of this change, which is, it's a lot of what the drudgery of doing maintenance programming is evaluating the risk at each point and weighing the cost of going in to make the code simpler.
One thing I really, really enjoyed when you were showing me this product today was everything seems to be centered around cut and paste. Like you cut something, a private member, you paste it in another section of the code, and it turns into something else, like a property. Right. And so the context basically decides what gets pasted. Yes. From what you have in the clipboard. Right. And
that's
just brilliant.
And that's what you were just talking about was a feature in CodeRush. We have a similar entry point to refactoring as well. When you think about it, a cut and a paste is essentially a move. Right? You're moving code. And if you cut from the right conditional, the right spot, and you paste it in the right contextual spot, and the code makes sense, we'll go ahead and say, hey, you know what? It looks like you tried to do an extract method. You just cut a big chunk of code out of a method, and you pasted it in right above, inside the class. It doesn't make sense to do that, to paste raw code inside a class. Yeah. We know what you want to do. You're trying to do an extract method, so we're going to generate a method for you. We're going to give you all the right parameters to it. So again, it's the whole point is ease of use. We wanted to create a product that people didn't have to associate a learning curve with.
So there's a new version of CodeRush coming out, right? Right. And in this new version of CodeRush, what are some of the things people can look forward to? And let's bring up the things that people complain about. And in particular, there's something in this particular version right now that seems to slow down. And,
right, the 1.015 version, right? Right. That's addressed in this update, the update that's coming out this week. The slowdown is there's like two areas of the slowdown. It is related to a feature called linked identifiers, which if you've used CodeRush, they're basically when you expand like a property template and you've got the declaration, you use the field, reference it a couple times, you rename the field in one place, it renames it everywhere else. That accelerates the rate at which you're going to hit that slowdown. For anybody who has it between now and then, the workaround, I posted this on the news group as well, the workaround, as soon as you kind of feel that sluggishness, is to close the file and reopen it. But that has been fixed. It was related, at this point, we don't know for sure what it was related to other than it was fixed, but it's narrowed down to a combination of garbage collection, the fact that we had a lot of small objects on, and we had a reference to those objects that was kind of hanging around longer than we needed it to. The reference was cleaned up when you closed the file, but as long as you had the file up, it was accumulating. I don't recall the other. I don't recall what the third possibility is. But that one is fixed.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And what are some of the new features of CodeRush that people can look forward to if they've already got?
In the new update?
Yeah.
We have structural highlighting, which basically draws lines, shows you the connections between the open brace and the closed brace.
Yep.
Well, the whole core is much more powerful than the previous one.
Okay.
So, and that was needed to support the refactoring product as well, right? Because we were like saying, okay, we need to get a little bit more here in the core so we can do the refactoring stuff. There's a neat new feature called Browse Recent Files, which will bring up a dialog with all the recent files you've recently worked on, like the last 500 of them. And you just type in a few characters of the file you want, and it says, oh, is it this one or this one or this one? You select it. One of the things we talk about reducing keystrokes. Even in this dialogue, we're really focused on reducing things like keystrokes, mouse movements, and even eye movement. And one of the things you'll notice with a lot of our dialogues, if you have to enter anything in the dialogue, that caret position is going to be right over the exact location of the caret position in the code when you started. So chances are you're looking at the caret when you bring the thing up. And so your eyes are right in the edit point that you need to be in to enter your filter. And so in a lot of our dialogues you'll see that. In the example of the Browse Recent Files dialogue,
which is a cool feature, by the way. I mean, even if it didn't have anything to do with writing code, just in any program to have that browse recent. I mean, you have the recently used file list, but it's like what, 4 files, and then it goes away.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you're also having to scan that visually up and down, right? There's no way to filter through that.
Right.
With this, you type in a few characters, and if you want, and right now, I mean, imagine your focus is in the edit box, right? You're typing in your filter, and then you see, well, the one I want is 3 down. Well, normally in a dialogue, you tab to the list control and then go down. Yeah. But in CodeRush, in this dialogue, in fact, in all of our dialogues, it's like this, that have this kind of combination of a filter and some lists. You just hit the down arrow. Because a down arrow does not make sense in the context of a focused text box. Likewise, typing in characters does not make sense in a focused list box. And so we can combine these controls and add some logic that make them appear as if it's one seamless control and save you some keystrokes along the way. And
Dan wants to know, does it load any quicker?
No, it doesn't load any quicker. It's on our list to fix that. It's an important thing to do. We have to basically do load on demand for this stuff, and we have to be able to sense demand. And it's
is it any slower or just no change?
Well, I would think it's probably no change. We have a couple more plugins, but I think there's also optimization that's happened a little bit, not huge amount.
But it's stuff you guys are thinking about. And when is it coming out?
Sometime early next week, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's soon.
Basically, we got the.
So by the time people are listening to this, it'll probably be ready.
That's probably correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
There was a chance it was going to go out today, but I don't think it hit the website today.
Wow, fantastic.
I saw there was another question. How does the refactor simplify?
Right.
And then it looks like it has another follow-up. The first thing I'll say is, how does it simplify? With expressions, what it does is it will resolve those. So if there is redundancy in the expression, here's a simple example of redundancy. You have one check that says if x is greater than 2, and you have another check that's coupled with that in an AND combination, logically ANDed with it, that says if x equals 2. And well, we can say, well, if it's greater than or equal to. That's a really simple example. A more common example is when you have a not operator, and you have a bunch of expressions inside, and one or more of the expressions inside also have not operators inside of them. And so what we can do is we can evaluate that inversion all the way through and see if that evaluation comes up with a simpler expression. And the way we measure that actually is we had to actually create our own metric for measuring complexity. and that's also built into plugins. So if you want to create a plugin that does your own metrics evaluation, it's real easy to do. We've also got cyclomatic complexity already built in.
What did you call that?
Cyclomatic complexity.
Is that a band from the 80s with a, what is that?
It should be, shouldn't it?
What does that mean?
Cyclomatic complexity is essentially a measure of the complexity of the code from a structural point of view. It doesn't measure expressions, the complexity of expressions, but it measures path split options. So like an if statement is a situation where code might go inside the if or it might go outside the if.
Yeah.
Okay? And it also essentially, the number represents the number of test cases you need to have for each method to be able to trace all the paths through it. So that's built in as well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ralph Ralph, sorry if I mispronounced your name, but he sent us a question. He says, is CodeRush more of a code generator or a code optimizer? That's a weird question.
No, CodeRush is like a code generator, and Refactor to some degree is a code simplifier, is what I would call it. It helps you simplify the code, make it easier to maintain.
Yeah, and the whole idea again is to reduce the number of keystrokes that you have to type to get to the code that you want.
I actually want to correct that. It's not a CodeRush is not a code generator.
No, it's not really.
It's really an efficiency/productivity tool.
That's it.
It does have the ability to actually generate some code, but it's not like you're going to go in some dialogue and maybe draw some pictures and then say go. It's not at all like that. You're writing the code. If you're a guy who writes code,
right.
That's what it's written for.
And it's extensible. Like the things that you do all the time, you can go in and add 2-character shortcuts for, and then instead of having to type them or pull them out of somewhere, it could be a big old block of code. You just you type those shortcuts, hit the space bar, and boom, there it is. It's just fantastic. It really is.
Roy had one other question. He said, does it extract method automatically from inside the ifs? No, it does not do that. It's not going to do an extraction automatically, without your consent. However, consent is also measured by hitting this keystroke, right? So if you basically select an expression automatically inside, like your if block that's really complex, what it will do is it'll go out and it'll either generate an extract method, or it might generate essentially what we call an extract property if conditions are right to do it. In other words, there are no parameters needed to it, and it just returns one result. And that also, if you've set that option up to say, hey, if there are no parameters to it and it only has one result, make it a property instead of a method.
Well, Mark, at the risk of starting a war here, I want to bring up something that you have thought a lot about, which is future user interface for the future of user interface for software development. And you also picked up on something that Rory was talking about on an earlier show, and which was about some 3D UI project that's going on. Rory, what was that?
It's the Looking Glass project from Sun, and it's not exactly 3D. It's more like pseudo 3D. At least in my opinion, because it's the same old 2D windowing system, but with a Z-axis.
Okay.
And to me, that isn't exactly 3D. It's like trying to take an existing system and just add a dimension to it and hope it works.
Right.
It's not something that was designed from the ground up to work in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
It's just an add-on.
I've
kind of like when we added the Y-axis. How we started out with just like the X-axis.
Yeah, man,
we just had that line of pixels across the screen.
That was really tough
to
program.
There was only number lines.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Well, before that, there was just a point. You remember that? We're all sitting around the campfire.
Oh, yeah.
0, 0. Somebody said, "Well, let's change the origin." Big deal. So, I heard you guys talk about this a while back, and you guys both kind of dismissed it as like hokey, and I was like, well, wait a second, 3D has potential. Not
3D has potential.
Well, no, I mean as a UI kind of effective thing. There's 2 examples that I have. One is kind of a fun one, and the other one is real. One of them is as an example in CodeRush. One of the things that we do is we have the ability to drop a marker to save a point, where you want to be, and then when you go somewhere else in the code, you can hit escape to jump back to that location. What we do is we draw a little what we call a locator beacon. It's kind of a soft little concentric circles that kind of go in on the location. The purpose behind that is that if you have a really large monitor and you've just changed the cursor, you've jumped to a new location in the file, we want to get your eyes kind of looking at the right spot. And that would be a cool thing to do in 3D, where it comes out. If you're really seeing it as 3D, that would be a cool thing to kind of start a little bit closer to you, move away. In other words, you can use 3D to accent certain kinds of things to kind of say, hey, look over here a little bit, And I'm not talking in a huge way. I'm talking in a really subtle way, and it could be useful.
Yeah.
Then the fun.
And just to be fair though, that isn't really what we dismissed. We were talking more about like a whole windowing system that was just sort of tacked on to an existing OS. But I know what you mean there. And the idea of the arrow, I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yep.
What you're talking about.
The fun thing that I want to do with 3D when I have the ability to do 3D caption bars and stuff like that, and actually pick my light source, is I want to have a peripheral that actually detects where the light source is in the room. So if you move the light around, the shadows will change on the windows right on the screen, and I think that will be the coolest thing in the world. I think it is great that a lot of developers are trying to work hard to make it better for us to write code.
Yes.
It's one of the things,
including you. Thank you very much.
Well, but one of the things that's always bugged me about being a software developer, in terms of what tools we have, is we've been working in text files for about 20 years. Okay? Every other profession that uses a computer has advanced beyond a text file. Okay? Except for us. And it's like, what the F? Excuse me, but it's just like, and so that's always bugged me.
Say it.
And so
say it. Say it.
What the F?
No, say it.
All right, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
It really pisses me off. And I say that as somebody who's completely unrelated to Developer Express, and they don't share my views. But it's just like, I want to have a much better. I want to have a rich environment. I want my XML doc comments to be looking like they're in XML. That's what I want. I want to be able to put annotations in the source code, so the guys, when I'm reviewing somebody's code, they look at it and they can see a little, bubble window or whatever saying, Mark said this line is, bad, or you should move this up, and you really should do it. And the guy just works and interacts in a much richer environment.
Yeah.
That's what I want. But it's really realistically not going to happen because you've got so much in the industry that's based on on text files. You've got version control systems.
Right.
You've got compilers. Everything says text file because
there's nothing wrong with
the denominator.
There's nothing wrong with the machines talking to text files, and that's sort of what XML is all about too, right?
Sure.
You don't have to go in and edit and work with the XML, but nothing wrong with working with it. It's just that you don't want to.
So my reaction in general to all of these, my reaction to these tools is I think that these tools are great. The autocode, all this other stuff. I think it's great that people are thinking about the problem of how to make developers faster. I think it's great that people are recognizing there are ways to improve our productivity, and I love that people are doing this stuff.
You're a big fan of ergonomic devices that save your back and your whole body from hammering out code all the time. Tell us about that. I mean, you obviously spend a lot of time coding. How many hours would you say you've?
Well, my estimate is about 12 hours a day average every day of the year. For the last, at least 7 years, I know I've maintained that probably. It's probably realistic. And what that means is if I take like a day off, that means on my other days I'm working 16 hours a day or something like that. So I'm sitting down for a lot. And I've been doing this for a long time. And as a result, in order to protect my hands from carpal tunnel and protect my back and some other things, I've kind of acquired some peripheral devices. One of the things that I used, and I wanted to share this with anybody else, especially if you're only working 8 hours a day and you're not feeling any pain, it's not a big deal. But I actually started using this stuff before I was feeling pain as kind of a preventative measure, and I think it's actually been able to keep me going for as long as I do. And if you're a guy who's really passionate about what you do and you spend a lot of time, then I think these things might be interesting to you.
Yeah.
One of the ones I have is I use these wrist stabilizers, and the brand that I recommend is Futuro. And I don't know somebody's got a URL on this, right? That's going to share what this is. And I've
a Shrinkster URL, right? What is it?
Yes. Yes, it's shrinkster.com/KY. That was an accident, honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to keep it in the theme of the show. But the thing I want to say is, did you finish it?
Shrinkster.com/KY.
Okay. The thing I want to say is that I have tried a lot of these. I have tried, neoprene ones, and they don't breathe enough. I've tried a huge variety, and this brand nails it for me. They do wear out. Like if you use them a lot, expect maybe a 3-month life out of them. Something along those lines. And you have to buy both individually, left and right. But if you search online, you can find good prices. That's one of them. The other one is for back support if you have lower back pain or if you're kind of feeling like you might be. Good posture is a good thing. Also, taking breaks and exercising is a good thing as well. But I have a back support brace and that I'll use, and it is I don't. You got the Shrinkster URL.
Shrinkster.com/KZ. That's Kilo Zulu.
All right.
for the back brace.
Yeah, and this is one of the ones that I like a lot. You know, when the biggest problem with the back support braces is that the Velcro will wear out over time. And then the third one I have, which is kind of fun, is it's called a Dynaflex Powerball or something like that is what it is. It's essentially like a little gyroscope.
Oh yeah.
It's a gyroscope inside of a kind of a plastic ball container, and it's for exercising your wrists. And so I'll get it started here. I have to start this with a little string on it here. Let's see if this works here. Okay. And it's going to take a second to get it going. So I'm kind of
really makes a racket, you said, didn't it?
Well, yeah, you should be able to hear it. I'm still getting it up to speed here. I'm just kind of spinning my.
So what does this do for you? Actually,
well, what it does is it gives you a workout in your hand. There's a really cool one. I don't have this one, but the really cool one has got a generator inside with LED lights and will glow like you're kind of a space alien, you know. And here, I think you can probably hear this. And it's getting up to 13,000 RPM or something like that.
Darth Vader chasing after Luke Skywalker.
Like abducted again.
So it's a great it's a good workout for your wrists.
Cool.
The other thing I'll say too is I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about a study where they had taken old people, people older than me, and they had said, hey, you know what? Let's give you guys a bunch of cognitive tests. They gave them the test, and they said, okay, for 6 months we're going to take half of you guys, and we're going to, you guys are going to stretch and do yoga. The other half, you guys are going to do some exercise. And then they gave them tests at the end, and the old folks that were exercising did better on the cognitive test. They actually saw them reawakening parts of the brain that were active that are normally associated with younger kids. And so when I heard that, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm a developer. I kind of sit in a room all day. I inject my body with large amounts of caffeine. Sure, it works on old people, but what about something more representative about me,
right.
who I am?
Yeah.
It turns out they did do the test on lab rats, and the lab rats were smarter at the end as well. So.
Well, if it's good enough for lab rats, it's good enough for.
So I get up, I get some exercise, I walk to McDonald's, every day, get some food.
Eye strain is also good. Eye strain is also a problem too. I've heard that if you can look out a window every once in a while, you'll be doing yourself a lot of good.
Right.
There's no mystery to why a lot of developers wear glasses.
Right. Let me say something else. We were talking about carpal tunnel. One of the things that aggravates it is frequent large amounts of typing. When I work with my team's around the world, so I'm doing a lot of IMing that I wasn't doing before. And so as a result, my hands started getting a little bit worse because of that. But they weren't worse, even though I was working all day long in CodeRush, because I was typing in fewer keystrokes. Yeah. So I kind of want to say to people, if you're starting to feel that cramp up in your hands, you should look towards any tool. Either get help, either CodeRush or something else, but get something so that you're not writing so much code during the day.
Right. Right. Well, all right. I think we're getting towards the end of the show, but what I want to ask you is if you'd be willing to put up a copy of CodeRush to give away to a lucky listener.
Yeah, we can do.
So first of all, how much is it?
CodeRush, I should have prepared. I have no idea.
I know you're not the marketing guy.
I think it's like $250 is what I think. Yeah, I'm getting some nods from other people. I think it's about $250. I think the refactoring product is going to be about $150 is what I think. But these are I think kind of answers to questions that I really don't pay a lot of attention to too much.
There was a story you were telling me earlier today, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember saying, you have to tell this story on the show.
Oh, about how I started programming.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I already had kind of a general interest in computer technology. This was like in, I don't know, I guess I want to say the 70s. I was interested in NAND gates and OR gates, all this kind of, logical kind of computer logic stuff. And sometime, around then, Radio Shack came out with a TRS-80. And I said, Dad, can I have that for Christmas, please? And, my dad was like, no way, you're not getting that. And Christmas came around and I got it. It was really, really cool. And he explained on that day, he said, well, my parents got me a bike, and back then it cost them a lot of money, and so, you know what, I decided to get it for you. And the thing had I think 16K of RAM total. Its storage device was a cassette tape, and I programmed a really cool game called which I called Super Pong, and it was or maybe it was Super Breakout, something like that. But it was basically 4 paddles around a square, and they all moved together either clockwise or counterclockwise, and 1 or 2 balls going around, bouncing around. And at the time, the TRS-80 had no ability when it was in graphics mode to get keyboard input, so you essentially could not program a game for it. But I figured out a way to kind of essentially get it to do that by doing some tricks. And I remember going into thinking, oh, I'm going to be rich, man. I got Super Pong. I got, a graphics mode on the TRS-80, and I got keys, controlling all of this stuff. And I remember walking into my, local Radio Shack, back when I thought it was really cool to hang out at Radio Shack, and, talking to the guy, and the guy says, yeah, we're just talking about stuff. And he says, oh, yeah, the new TRS-80, version 2 is coming out, and, really cool stuff. You can accept keystrokes during graphics mode. And I'm like, no. So it was like, my life was crushed. I had, there was yet another $1 million idea slipping out. And then, but what I found is after a few weeks, or maybe about a month, I felt that I had my exploration and kind of melding into this machine had hit the limit with this 16K memory, and I felt like I needed more. I needed something else beyond it. And shortly after this, the Amiga came out, and I was like, Dad, Amiga for Christmas, man.
This is a familiar story, Rory, with Liz?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Amiga envy.
I'm like, look at this. It's got all these colors. It's like, and he's like, I got you a computer. I'm like, oh, come on, Dad. Christmas comes around, and I think I got a microscope. And I'm like, damn. And so I'm like, yeah, I wanted this thing so badly, and I wanted to write games. So I got a book on how to program for the Amiga, and I wrote code in a notebook based on what I was reading in this and learning on this stuff.
Now, not a notebook program.
Sorry, no, yeah,
paper and pencil.
Yeah, paper and it was pen. I was using pen.
Ooh, living dangerously, were you?
But it was bug free as far as I know.
It's like write-only memory. You just can't.
To some degree. Well, you can cross stuff out, right?
Right.
So, and I had pages and pages and pages of code for this game where you were driving through this maze in a car, and you could put a hook out, or throw a hook out and whip around a corner real fast, and it was wonderful. That's how nutty I was about wanting to do this.
Did you ever get a chance to compile it?
No, never did.
It was very similar to a story Rory told about some girl in his 4th grade class who had an Amiga and kept rubbing it in.
Liz.
Man, I think Roy already he doesn't need to go through that as well.
Yeah.
During his therapy session. When is that scheduled, Roy? That's like tonight, right?
Therapy session.
I don't know about you, but I've got my therapist. I've got a separate cell phone with only that number in it. When I got an issue, I just pull that out and hit that button.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, and what I'd like people to do, for anyone who wants to win a copy of the award-winning and excellent CodeRush by Mark Miller here at DevExpress, is to go to their website at devexpress.com and find the current date of the current version of CodeRush. The date is listed there on the website, and it's got the current version and the current build, and there's the date. And if you want to win, you basically have to send us the date of that build to .netrocks@franklins.net, and we will be standing by and waiting for your email. And with that, so Mark, how's you obviously thought enough of the show to come down here from wherever you come from and to hang out in the studio. And I guess you're on your way to Florida, flying into a hurricane or something.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, well, fun. I was talking to you about this a little bit today. I was saying, that, and we were talking about pair programming a bit. And one of the things I mentioned, that one of the neat things about pair programming is it turns something that's normally an isolated experience and kind of makes it a little bit social, where you're like interacting and talking, even though you're just talking about design and the classes and things like that.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that, one of the things that I like about what you guys are doing with the show is that it does that same kind of thing. It has that same element of bringing kind of a social experience and interaction, and kind of revealing the meaningful part of what it is to be a human being. When it's so easy to kind of forget that when you're just buried in the code all day. And I think that's really cool what you guys are doing. So.
Oh, thank you. That is cool. We like it.
Yeah, and I'm speaking at VS Live, and I'm flying in. I think around the same time as Andre is coming in or something like that.
Yeah,
so that's gonna be fun.
Hurricane Ivan.
Well, I'm looking forward to that plane flight in. That's gonna be fun.
So you're off to VS Live. Oh, wait a minute. Here, you talk to Rory for a minute. I got to read these. See if I can find a winner here.
You want me to talk to Rory?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Rory.
How are you?
I only give you a hard time because I think you're a freaking genius, man. I mean, it's like, and I'm like, I guess I have to apologize. I probably have to apologize to a lot of people now that I think about it tonight after tonight's show. I gotta work these blanket apologies out.
No, actually, the thing that had me quiet was that I really am getting a therapist. That's what confused me. I was like, how the hell did he know? And I was taking.
Doesn't everybody have one? I'm just like, I would just. I mean, I have 5 or 6 at any one given time. If I don't like what one guy says, I'm on to the next. It's like that's it. I'm going to my next guy that I'm trying to deceive that I'm everything's cool. So
yeah, I was just momentarily very, very. I was trying to figure out if you were reading my mind or something.
That's possible.
I mean, I don't believe in that sort of thing, but I was willing to believe in it for a moment.
He downloaded the software.
I was Roy. I was at your site and I read the what was it? The I'm eating dinner in Italy with Satan and the octopus that's peeing / squirting blue stuff on the floor. And I read that and I said, he is a genius. This guy is a genius, and he's just a genius. And I'm actually disappointed, man, that Microsoft's got you speaking, because they should have you. What I told this to Carl today, they should stick you out in a desert with a laptop and some peyote and give you 7 or 8 days, and you'll come back and you're going to revolutionize. Everybody's going to go like, what the hell is this? Rory did it, and they're going to oh my God. They're going to sit down for weeks with scientists trying to figure it out.
Well, I don't know what to do here, guys, because we got 15 people who are wait. Oh. No, we have one. And we only have his email address or her email address. Who is this? Yeah, who's JHB? JHB, you got it finally. And I don't know, maybe it's indicative of multiple pages that have dates and builds and stuff. But we're looking at www.devexpress.com/section/support versions, current version /build. And the current version is 1.0.15, and the date is March 22nd, 2004. So, JHB, you are the winner of CodeRush. Congrats, man. Bravo, yes. Yeah. And Richard is in Kuala Lumpur tonight, so he is not doing the Toy Boy segment. So we didn't have much mail, we didn't have much news, and didn't have much Ask Rory. It was mostly show. So there you go. For all you people who thought we were being a little too fluffy, take that. So, So on behalf of myself and Rory Blythe, Jeff Maciolik out there in the sound room, Mark Miller, Dan Kurla, right, and Kirk Webb, and myself, thanks very much for listening to .NET Rocks, and we will see you next week with Joe Stagner. Keep on rocking, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Drive on, life is hard, pay my taxes.